raised by forces of evil, by Herod. Herod put out a decree to kill any child under the age of 2. So the Holy Family flees to Egypt. Then the wise people are to report back to Herod what they were called in a dream to do otherwise. Thankfully, took a different route. So we got crossing borders there. We got Jesus leaving his home. We got the wise people crossing borders to get to Jesus because it was important enough to find this joy and peace and love and hope, this transformation in their lives. And we got them going back, crossing borders in a different route. Maybe there's a metaphor in that for us. Is what borders do we need to cross in our lives in 2017 to embrace more of what the Christ child offers us? Have more of a sense of peace and joy. As sad as it was to talk to our friend Jeanette, who I shared that had cancer on Friday, I could sense an inner peace. Thank God. Thank God for that peace that can only come, in my experience, from having a relationship with God, of knowing Jesus, of knowing that life is for eternity, not just the life that we know now. Not that we can't use that power now. Maybe there's some borders that we need to cross, that we can find more of that in our lives. Share a story with you of a couple that were very active in a church. They actually found one another in church. I know that's happened for at least Tim and Becky in our church that are our guitarist today and his wife. They found each other in church. This was a couple that were maybe a little bit younger than Tim and Becky when they met in church, and so they decided to have children. And the congregation was part of this journey with them. They were happy and encouraging them to get together, and then having children was not easy for them, and there was a lot of testing and procedures, and the congregation was praying for them. And the lady became pregnant, and everybody in the congregation was happy and excited. They decided that their children's name, who was twins, would be Abraham Joseph and Sarah Mary. How much more biblical, how much more part of the Christmas story could you get than that? But then, unfortunately, this young mom miscarried. Stinks. Really, really stinks. And when they were meeting with the pastor, the dad said, "We want to end the service by playing What a Wonderful Life by Louis Armstrong." And the pastor kind of thought maybe the guy was not thinking clearly, like, why would you want to do that at a time like this? Then I know we did a service recently where we said, take us out to the ball game at the end of the service, and that's okay too, because we end with the joy of a relationship with God. So the church was filled, and it was very emotional, and they said goodbye to these Abraham Joseph and Sarah Mary. And then what happened next, no one expected. The dad, the husband, rose to his feet, and he opened his arms. And his wife stood, and he drew himself close to one another. And arm in arm they danced. to It's a Wonderful Life. They danced the dance of life, clear across the chancel of that church, for they knew beyond a doubt that when suffering comes, the kingdom of God is near. God draws close to us. Hopefully, prayerfully, we draw close to one another. And the kingdom of God becomes more important to us. The couple knew that in life is filled sometimes with ambiguous, with contradictions. They knew that sometimes things happen that no one can explain. Yet they also knew, the two of them, that nothing, as I said earlier, no heartache, no grief, no loss, could ever separate them or their children from the love of God in Christ Jesus. What a wonderful world, even with the King Herods in it. Even with the unexpected surgeries, even with cancer, the unexpected death, or whatever bad things happen to good people, whatever borders we need to cross, we don't do it alone. God goes with us because nothing can separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. So maybe for us in 2017, that maybe just means an attitude adjustment. Maybe just being a little kinder to our co-workers, to the clerk in the store, to those with whom we're in primary relationship. Maybe it means being a little bit more loving, authentic, and inclusive with one another, because that is indeed three attributes that they say will certainly help us to increase our church and our love at Pine Grove is being loving, authentic, and inclusive. Maybe we need to cross a couple borders in the way we do things. Maybe we need to look to meet together, plan things out once a month rather than once every 3 months. And maybe there's a way we can structure the way we do things that makes everyone feel more inclusive. Maybe we can use that beautiful gymnasium that's behind us. Maybe we can have shuffleboard, which is the shuffleboard lines on the gym floor. Great intergenerational thing to do. Whether you're 8 or 80, you probably can push a shuffleboard stick. Maybe we want to do an exercise class there. Maybe we'll have another play there. You hear that, Becky? Maybe there's some ways that we can cross borders. Maybe we have a neighbor who doesn't look like us. They came from another part of the world that speaks with an accent. And you say, well, they're not like the people I worship with in Pine Grove. And maybe their Christian experience is much more firmer than ours. Maybe we need to say, why don't you come and be part of Pine Grove? Cross a border. Maybe we can cross the border in what we do and show the deep love of God that is part of this community of faith. Community of faith where we even have a good friend, a good son of Abraham of the Jewish faith that's up here playing guitar. Nothing wrong with that. Thank you, Brother Jeff. In case you wonder why Jeff has a hat on every week, that's what Jewish people do in church, in synagogue and temple. They wear hats to show their allegiance to God. But we can respect others' faith and still give our heart to Christ. Amen for that. And as we look for an organist, and we look maybe to cross borders in ways where we can incorporate the music that we have with the organist that hopefully we'll have together, ways of working together, expanding ourselves, so that this is the year of joy. I was talking to my partner in life, Dee, who the chair couldn't be with us today as she's recuperating from some gastrointestinal ailment, otherwise known as the stomach bug. She says, I'm not so sure about that story of that young couple that lost a child. So she said maybe it's a little too depressing. But anyways, given everything that happened this week, I thought it's good to know that nothing can separate us from the love of God. But what Dee did say to me was, you gotta have Nancy Crow speak. There's nobody, hardly anybody in the congregation that's been through more and still has this phenomenal spirit, this wonderful smile as Sister Nancy does. A little background on Nancy. She was an officer in the U.S. Army, and she served in Desert Storm. That's maybe enough to see some bad things right there. And then she got back home after an honorable discharge and had a couple of bad things happen to her in the last 5 years. And I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'll let her come up and share that with us.
As a way of introduction, because it's part of the story, I've dealt with depression on and off since I was about 14, which is important to know because in 2014, the beginning of 2014, I was in Minneapolis, and really, really bad time, about as depressed as I've ever been. And after a suicide attempt involving vodka and sleeping pills, which didn't work on one. After that, I had bought a knife and studying ways to kill myself with a knife, but so chicken I couldn't do it. And I prayed to God to just, didn't believe in God at this point, but prayed to God to just have somebody else stab me and do the work for me. Well, my oldest sister came out to Minneapolis, and I tell people, hog-tied me and brought me back. She lives in Colony. I now live with her and my brother-in-law. And things moving along in therapy, and had forgotten about this wish that I had made until at one point someone did grab me from behind and pull me in the woods and start stabbing me. And wouldn't you know, I didn't hold up my end of the bargain. I didn't let myself die. I didn't figure it at the time, but I'm thinking maybe that was God's way of showing me that I really do want to live, that I really do value life. But at the time I didn't think about that. I thought about there is no God. No God would allow this to happen to somebody who's working to come out of this. And I can be a little thick-headed at times. I found out that not only had the improbable happened that Waterfleet Shaker Road was quiet enough at 10 minutes to 6 on a weekday afternoon that this guy could come up to me from behind and nobody see him. But what are the chances the neighbor across the street took out his garbage just as I was yelling for help? He didn't know what was going on. Was it kids playing around? Was it serious? But he told his wife to call 911. What are the chances? I didn't know that there were police in the area somewhere. The longest response time I heard about was 52 seconds, which is amazing. I didn't know that there was a police investigator who lives in my neighborhood who was driving for some easy overtime at town court when she spotted a patrol car pulled over, and she stopped and asked if there was anything wrong, anything needed help, and it never is. It's always like a traffic violation or something, and they said, no, we have a woman who was stabbed. And so she had more seniority than they did, and even though she had never dealt with a situation like this in a nice, safe town, she took charge. I didn't know that an ambulance driver, who again lives in my neighborhood, had gone away from Central Avenue to pick up something at home before he went back to wherever their base is, and they got the call and got there right away. I didn't know that somehow there was a doctor on this ambulance. That never happens. All of these coincidences, well, like I said, I'm thick-headed. I still didn't think there was a God. No God would let this happen. But I started losing the anger a little bit, although I will tell you that if God forgives me my trespasses the way I forgive others, I may be in a little trouble. But somehow, while I'm still angry, riding the bus into Albany, I passed by the sign outside that says, "Free family movie night, Frozen." Well, I have a grandniece who turns 5 this week, so she was 3 at the time. And Frozen is the best movie ever. And so I told my sister about it. They live in Albany, and I'm thinking that family might want to come here and see the movie. Well, my sister had other ideas. She called it, and having both the kids come over, Skylar, who at the time was 3, and Aiden, who at the time was, I think he's now 9, he was 7. And I thought this was a one-off event. So we get there, and, you know, a lot of nice people. There's a very nice woman who serves the concessions, and I didn't know who she was. A very nice woman who serves the concessions. And so we watched the movie, and little Skylar, she hooked up with this other little girl who turned out to be Evie, and they're just having a great time. And at the end of the movie, this nice man who was showing the movie, I didn't know who he was, said that they were going to do this again next month, and it would be Up. Well, I've seen Up before, I really don't care about it, but Aiden looks at me and says, "That's one of my favorite movies." So we come again the next month. And again, very nice lady at the concessions. You know, nice people showing up as other kids. And so we come again in the next month for another, and the next month for another. And this is all I'm doing with the church. But there's no pressure. No, you should really come to church. No, none of that. And then there's a family fun day. Well, wouldn't you know it, somebody was annoying enough to put the family fun day after the worship service. I've been a Methodist since the end of high school. I grew up Catholic, but been Methodist since the end of high school. And I can't just show up after the worship service. No, you gotta come to the worship. So I dragged my sorry self in here. And this nice lady who works the concessions, it's free by the way, there's no charge for the concession, comes up and introduces herself. It's Shirley back here. Are you there? Hi! And she comes up, she recognized me and said hello, and then Walter, who is the one who shows the movies, I just knew he was this man who shows the movies, he said hello, they all recognized me, and it was Pastor Jane at the time, and she came up and talked to me, and so it's just this sense of, you know what, knucklehead, God has shown you that you survived something that you should not have survived. So it's something that you asked for, by the way. And now God is pulling you into a church community. And just a feeling of comfort that I haven't known. A feeling of being a part of a group. And that is so special to me. I don't know, maybe I'm blind in one eye as a reminder that I do have the will to live. And I can never forget that. I can never put that experience behind me. And I just want to point out, I'm looking at the congregation here, for some reason the weight has gone over from everybody sitting on this side to now everybody sitting on this side, and I don't know why that is. I also have the attention span of a fruit fly sometimes. But I think if we dig down, we each know that we have those experiences in life where we get what we said we wanted, and it turns out we didn't want it, but we got something more valuable. I wanted death, I found the will to live. And maybe that helps me get through other things as they come along. But that's what I got to say.
Amen.
Amen.
I give you a hug, but I don't want to give you the bottle.
Skype.
Right. I think Nancy crossed some borders in some real and profound ways. It is my hope and prayer that we can draw, I'm sure you did, inspiration from what she had to say, that if there's some borders that you need to cross in 2017, you're inspired by her, by her strength, by your connection with God and your connection with His family of faith. And like those wise people, crossing those borders to mean that we are overwhelmed with joy. Let us pray. God, I thank you to be part of a community that we can call connection and relationship, and maybe even family. Family, for some of us, is not always a really good thing. It is the best we got. The family connections we have with you are based on pure and selfish love. It helps us to cross borders and come to a place of being overwhelmed with joy. May we embrace all that is said today in music and in our relationships and go forth into 2017 filled with that joy through Christ, in Christ, and with Christ. Amen.
Amen.